Whoops, there's my Twitch chat. I gotta move that. Let's go up here. All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the first Let's Build, I guess. So this is exciting. So how this is gonna work, I guess I'll just kind of get right into it. We're gonna have 3 sessions, and it's just gonna kind of be me going through the general idea of creating a creature mod specifically for ARK. So I'll dabble a little bit in kind of general things that are important for any mod, but this is going to focus specifically on what I'm good at, which is creatures. So, and if I'm looking up here, it's because that's where my chat is for Twitch. So I should be able to see chat. Yeah. And I'm gonna, kind of go through this pretty naturally. I may, forget about an important detail or something. So I do want to preface, if anybody has any questions about modding or how I did something or how to set something up, stuff like that, please ask in chat. I'll try my best to answer all those questions. And we have some folks from Overwolf here as well that will help me point out these questions. I do want to apologize as well. I am actually recovering from a pretty stinky illness for the past week, so I may have to blow my nose or cough at some point during the stream. But so let's get started. So the first thing, obviously, we want to have the dev kit available to us. Everyone can hear me well, right? I should probably check that first before I kind of just jump into it. I see my mic is picking up audio, so I assume everyone can hear me. So the first thing we want is to have the ARK dev kit installed, obviously. Now you install this through Epic Game Launcher, which I have mine here, and you'll see there's actually 2 versions here. There's ARK dev kit and there's ARK dev kit beta. I have the beta because that's what was being used when ASA was kind of being developed, when I was getting the ARK editions ready. But if you want a more stable release that's going to have less issues, I would recommend just the default dev kit. But we would have that installed. It is a decent size. It is about 330 gigs. It's not small. So you definitely want to have a drive dedicated to it, if that's possible. And yeah, we'll just boot that up. So for these 3 sessions, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually use my acro that I've been working on, and I'm going to basically kind of start it from scratch and have that be the creature that I demo for these sessions. So the first one that we're going to have today is kind of getting the mod set up, getting all the important... Ooh, I'm missing all these notifications because the video is too small. Thank you everyone for the subs. I appreciate it. But can I actually, can I mute those? Does that work? Does. So I'm going to use acro. I'm going to re-import that model. I'm going to show how to set up animations and stuff for it and all that jazz. So the first session, which is today, is going to be getting a new mod set up in the dev kit, kind of sorting those files, blocking the chat. I think I actually need to open stream elements for that. Let me go disable that quick. One sec, folks, sorry. How do I get to my dashboard? There we go. And so, here, stream chat, hide that, and is that all? Did that work? Looks like it did. Okay. So, Yeah, so today's going to be getting a mod started up, kind of importing like the character model, importing some animations. We're not really going to do any of the character blueprint stuff today. That'll be session 2. But we're going to do all the animation stuff. We'll get physics set up. We'll see if we can get to the death ragdoll. But truth be told, I'm still kind of trying to figure out that system. So I can kind of just briefly cover it at some point. But yeah, so let's get started. So for those of you that have never seen the dev kit, never opened it, this is what you should see almost immediately. You'll see we have our viewport window. We have our little toolbars here. We have an outliner that shows all the assets that are currently in our level that we have loaded. So you see if I click any of these, it's kind of showing cube 23, cube 24, so on. So that kind of just highlights all of our elements we have in our level. And then we have a details and a world settings. So world settings is settings that are specific to the level we have loaded. And then we have details, which is to a specific asset if we select it. So you see if I select cube here, we have all these details on the side. We can control different things like scale, the location, the material, things like that. So that's kind of just navigating the dev kit generally. And down in the bottom left here, I have something called content drawer. And that is going to be where all of our actual assets are being loaded in memory, essentially. So you see here, the first thing I have open is my acro, because that's the one I've been working on. But we have like dinos, we can see the models here, animations, textures, things like that. And this is where all our files are going to go when we import these assets. So the first thing we want to do is you'll notice in this plugins folder is where all these additions mods are. And that's what we want to do is we want to create a new mod so that in our plugins, we'll see we have a folder that we can actually use. So to do that, we want to come up to UGC here, which is user generated content. And if we click that, we have a few options. We have share mod, create mod, import legacy mod, duplicate existing mod, and enabled mods. And you see I have like all the additions there and so on and so forth. So what we want to do in this case is we want to create a mod. If let's say one of you has a mod from Survival Evolved and you want to bring a mod into Survival Ascended, you would use this import legacy mod here. And I'm not really going to get too into it, but basically you open this file, you browse to your Survival Evolved dev kit folder, and you select that folder hierarchy there, and that will actually import all of those assets from the ASE dev kit to the ASA dev kit. So it's a very handy thing. You will have to do some cleanup when stuff ports over, but it definitely keeps you from completely starting fresh, right? So quite helpful. But we're going to create mod. And we're going to have a little window pop up here with a few different settings. So we have empty mod, blank mod, creature template, structure mod, ranged weapon mod, outfit, flyer template. So a bunch of nice templates that Wildcard developed for people that want to get into modding. So if you want to do kind of a simple like remake of a creature, you have a template here. If you want to do structures, so on and so forth. It's pretty cool. For the sake of these sessions, I'm going to do a blank mod because I'm basically developing a completely new asset. So we're going to click that here. We can set these descriptions if I want. So I'll just put Garuga 123. You don't need to, but it kind of just helps with the file's metadata. I'll just say, let's build. And then mod name. So this is what the actual folder and the plugin file is going to be called. So we'll call it Garuga _ let's build. and we will do create mod. And it will take a minute to load packages. And the reason we're doing blank mod as opposed to empty mod is empty mod makes the plugin, but absolutely nothing else. There's no other assets. There's nothing pre-made for you. Where you'll see in a sec, once I have blank mod created. So now we're in our blank mod folder, and you see we have on the side here, Garuga, let's build content. So this is the folder where all of the mod stuff we're going to make is going to be. So anything for this specific mod will be in this folder. And you'll see some of the defaults we have. So we have level here, which has a bunch of this stuff. Am I crazy? I don't see the back key. We have a level here, blank mod. We have another level test map area, blank mod. We have primal game data, and we have a mod data asset. So right off the bat, and I could be wrong with this. Maybe Sed or somebody at Wildcard will correct me here. But when I was making the acro and some of these newer mods, so this level file folder I actually don't need. So I'm going to just delete that. And this is just kind of to help with organization. Okay, and it's giving an issue, so we won't worry about that. So for context, sometimes if you try to delete a file or folder in the dev kit, it'll give you this error, which is basically saying it's loaded in memory and you can't delete it. Something's relying on it. It's not a big deal. You can just delete it the next time you open the dev kit. So we'll just ignore that for now. No harm, no foul. And we have blank mod level and test map area blank mod level. So the important things that we have here are primal game data, mod data asset, and the level. So the level is going to load the primal game data asset, and then the primal game data asset is going to load the mod data asset. So if you want your mod to work at all, you need these to work. So we're going to actually get rid of the test map area one, because we don't need to worry about that too much. And then we can just rename these just to help us with our organization. So we'll call this Let's Build Primal Game Data. We will call Let's Build, and the mod data asset will be Let's Build. There we go. So I'll open Let's Build, save these. And you'll see we just have a blank level. There's no lights, there's no nothing. And it's because we haven't made anything for this level. But all you want to do here is, and it looks like it does it automatically when you create the mod, is in the world settings, when we open level, we're going to come down to this little setting here, which is primal game data override. And what we want to do is we want to put in that primal game data that we made with this mod in here. So that way, essentially when a mod is loaded in ARK, it actually loads kind of a level first, and the level is what gets the primal game data stuff set up. So all we want to do is plug that in to the setting, and we can either do that by clicking this, and with it highlighted, we can click this little arrow here, and that will plug it in, or we can go browse to asset in content browser. We can click this drop down and we can find that specific primal game data that we want. Once we have that set up, that's all we need to do for the level. So we can go back to test map area. We can save that. That's done. That part's done. It's easy. Hey Garuga, what software do you usually use to model the creatures? I use ZBrush and I use Autodesk Maya. For these streams, I'm not going to cover third-party software, so I'll, mention the stuff that I use for the asset creation, but these streams are going to focus specifically on the dev kit. But yeah, as far as actual modeling the characters, I use ZBrush and Maya. That's what I use for those. So we have the level set up with the primal game data, and now we want to have the primal game data set up with the mod data asset. So I'm going to open this, and it's opening on my top monitor. So once it loads, I will drag it down. The primal game data takes a while to open usually. So if you're trying to open one on your dev kit, don't worry if it's taking a while. It's just a really big asset. And right at the top here, you see under modding, we have mod name, mod description, and then additional mod data asset. So again, because we did the blank mod template, it automatically puts it in for us. So we have mod data asset let's build here, and that's exactly how we want it. So we can hit compile. It'll take a minute because it's a big file, and we should just get a green check mark. Compiling is very important for blueprinting. You see right now, by default, it has kind of the little question mark with the yellow circle. And that just means that it needs to be, all the information in it needs to be compiled by the editor to make sure there's no issues or errors and that it can run properly. So if it can run properly, which is just taking a while because it's a big blueprint, you should see a green check mark like we have here. And then I can hit save. If it does not compile properly, you will see a red, forget the shape. It's a red symbol. That's basically telling you there's errors. And in the output log for that blueprint, it will tell you where those errors are. So you can actually go to them. And we probably won't have to worry about that too much this stream. That'll be more in session 2 with the actual blueprinting. Thankfully, this stream will be, the visual elements. It'll be a lot simpler. And that's how long it took for that file to close. So it is a big file. And then lastly, we have the mod data asset. So this is where, and this file opens a lot faster. This is where all of our actual mod content is going to kind of be soft loaded by the editor and by the game. So when I make a new creature, I'm going to reference that via spawns in this blueprint. When I have eggs, I will load that in this blueprint. When I have structures, that will be this blueprint. Engrams, literally anything that any asset that you're going to make to play with in ARK will be referenced through this asset. So that's why it's important to have this, because if you make a whole fancy creature and it doesn't have spawns, you're not going to be able to load it in the game. You need to have it referenced in some way via this file. So with the super essential stuff kind of set up now, we can start actually importing assets to kind of start working with. So what I'm going to do, because I like to be organized, is I'm going to hit this little, is it this one? No. Where's the new folder? Am I crazy? There we go. Just right click. So I'm going to call this Dinos, just because that's typically how Wildcard's folder structure is organized. And this is where I'm going to have my acro mesh and then some of my other files. So for now, just to kind of set it up, I'm going to have an animations folder. And I think that's the only one we'll really have to worry about right now. And so yeah, we'll start importing stuff. So what we can do is we can go to import over here. If we right click, we can also do import. And I have Acro's animation folder open. So what I'm going to do is go to my Acro project folder, and I'm going to look for Acro ASA FBX. So if you are going to make a custom creature completely yourself, not one that exists in ARK already, you want to have an FBX file type. This is a rigged character that has a skeleton. It's able to be animated. It has bones for animations to be played on. This is the file type you would want generally for this, and it is the, in this case, default file type for most game engine character model assets. If you're going to be doing something like a structure, or something of that nature, you probably would just want a .obj, which stands for .object. But in this case, we want .fbx. So I'm going to select this file, and I'm going to hit open. And you'll see here it's going to greet me with a bunch of FBX import options. So the very first one is skeletal mesh. We do want that checked. That means it will be a character mesh. So we want that checked. Import mesh we want on. Most of these settings we can leave at default. Prevent smoothing groups, sure. Use TO as reference pose. Yeah, like you don't really need to mess with most of these settings. Import animations I'm going to turn off because the file I'm importing does not have any animations. Let's see, anything else? FBX file information. I thought there was a physics asset. Okay, create physics asset. So I'll leave that off for now because I'm going to actually show how that works. And we're going to just hit import. And it'll take a sec. And let's see, no smoothing group information is found in this FBX file. I'm going to just ignore that for now. I won't make a big deal out of it. That's stuff that you kind of have to set up in like Maya or an outside program, so I won't worry too much about that. And you'll see we have a few assets here. We have acro ASA, which is the skeletal mesh. We have acro ASA skeleton, which is the asset that's loading all the bones and that info. And then we have eye refraction material and MIC, which are the materials that were loaded onto this character. So I'm going to actually delete these because we're going to use a material that Wildcard has already created. So right now we just have these two files. We have ASA skeleton, which you see here, I will bring down here. So here we have our nice acro model. We have all of our bones on the side here. So we have things like the root, which I don't know why the root's there. That's weird. I hope that doesn't cause errors, actually. That's a bit strange. But we have all these different bones here. And you see here we're on the skeleton tab right now in the top right. Actually, you can't see that because my video is in the way, I think. But no, you can. Okay. And then we have our mesh here. And so this is the actual palpable model that we'll see in game. So you see we have material here. So we have the eye material and we have the body material. We have LODs, which I'll touch on briefly. That's actually something I'm still trying to kind of get a grasp of as well. Physics here, which we won't worry about right now. But again, you can leave most of these settings at default. If anything, one of the settings you might want to mess with is maybe the scale multiplier. And what I mean by that is if I come into the editor right here, and what I can actually do now is I can drag my acro out here because he is a mesh. So we see a nice acro, and I'm going to actually load the viewport up quick so it loads a character for me to control. So I will do that quickly. That'll take a sec. It just has to compile all these files because the dev kit hasn't been opened yet. Hey Garuga, I'm having a problem where assets import with the wrong size. Is that like, how do you mean? Did you export like a ARK creature and you re-imported it? Or is the scale just off? Also, sorry this takes so long. This is just, if you're familiar with my mods, I have a lot of modded creatures, and the first time you're playing the viewport or loading Pi, it has to load everything. So it takes a bit. But it shouldn't take too long. So the reason I'm loading up Pi now is mentioning the mesh thing. So this acro model actually imports very small. There we go. And now I'm in. So we can see we have a character. And this is a very tiny acro. This is probably actually pretty close to what a normal sized acro would be in real life. But yeah, we'll just leave it that way for the sake of the mod. So we can see now how our model will look compared to a person here as far as size. So if I wanted to change it, I can just hit escape, load out a pie, and I can actually go to the mesh here. And if I scroll down under mesh, we have a scale multiplier. So what I can do is I can actually increase that, and that will reflect down the chain for all things. So if I wanted the acro character larger, I would just increase the scale multiplier here. Very easy fix. But I'll just leave it as is for now. I think that's fine. And so now, you know, importing the creature immediately, we don't have any textures. He's just kind of a gray creature with the default Unreal texture on him, right? So we want to actually have some of his textures on him. So I am going to make another folder, and I'm going to call this textures. And in here is where I'm going to import those. So in my content file, I have textures here, and I'm going to start importing these. So we want colorize, diffuse, layered, and normal, and I believe that is all we want. And I'm going to hit open, and that is going to import all of those textures. Here we go, easy. And something to note, I'm not going to get too much into it. If it's something that is interesting to people, I can do it in a different stream outside of these sessions. But so you noticed I imported basically double the amount of files in here. And that's because Acro is actually loading multiple UV sets, which is the thing you kind of set up outside. So just so that I have higher texture resolution, he's actually technically two different textures instead of just one big texture. So I believe I have him set up so his upper body and his lower body are two different sets, which if I open that, you can see that here. So this is Acro's upper body and this is his lower body here. And the way I have it set up is so when I import it, it actually just compresses them into one texture. Saves a lot of time, makes your models look better, but I'm not going to get too into that. So now we have our textures here. The essential textures we want is the diffuse. This is the actual, I guess, look. I don't know, the base color of the creature. And you see when I open it, it's a default gray. And that's because if we want our creatures in ARK to have these randomly generated colors from a pool, we want this to be gray. We can loosely affect those colors by having darker and lighter areas. So you can actually see on the spine of my acro here, it's much darker. And that's because I want the color that shows up on its back to be darker. And then I have the opposite, the neck, the underbelly, those areas are lighter because I want those colors to be brighter. Again, outside software stuff I'm not going to get too into, but if it's interesting to people, I can have sessions in regards to some of this third-party software. So the diffuse is our bread and butter texture. Next we have our normal map. If anyone has messed with any sort of game development stuff, this should be very recognizable. This is the texture that actually shows the depth and bumps of a model. So let's say you have a really flat creature, like the actual model looks very smooth. This would be the texture that kind of simulates small, minute like detail and form in a creature. And I can demonstrate that when I actually start loading this onto the model. The next texture we have is the layered map. And this one's a bit of a doozy. This one took me a while to figure out. But again, I can show how to kind of create this in an outside video. The layered map is how light reacts to your model. So if you want certain areas of the creature to be very shiny or very flat, they don't give off a lot of light, that is the texture that you're going to be messing with to edit that. And then lastly, we have the colorize. And the colorize is a very eye-straining texture that dictates where color regions are. So you see we have a lot of magenta here, and that is region 5, I believe, on creatures is magenta. We have red, which I believe is region 0. And this just kind of dictates color. So if ever you've done like a color console command on a creature and you say like set my target dino color 079, what you're doing is you're giving it pitch black on region 0. So region 0 in this case on acro would be red. And those are the textures that we are going to be dealing with. So for the sake of organization, we have a bunch of texture settings on the side here. The only thing I'm going to really mess with is the texture group. And what this does is when you're editing settings in your ARK game, like let's say you're doing textures low or textures high or whatever, this kind of helps organize what the system is doing with these textures. So if I just leave it at world, it's kind of treating it as like level textures. So in this case, what I want to do is character. So I'm going to leave that as character, and I'm going to hit save. Acro ASA normal. It is a world normal map. I want it to be a character normal map. And hit save. Layered. I actually don't know. I think I usually just do character for layered. So I'll just leave it at that. I do see there's a character specular, which is kind of technically, I guess, what it would be doing, but I won't worry too much about it. And then colorize as well. I'm going to just do character. So we're going to organize all of them like that. I'm seeing some people. Okay, I'm seeing some people ask some questions in regards to addition stuff. I'm not gonna try to focus too much on stuff like that because this is an unrelated stream. If you want more information about ARK Editions related content, I would suggest going to the Discord, which I believe I have a link to in my Twitch. Otherwise, if anyone has any questions in regards to how creature modding works or anything like that, I'll try my best to answer those. So, I'm going to close these because I got the settings down for them. And now I'm going to start actually doing the material. So when messing with materials in the dev kit, there's 2 different types of materials that might get confusing. We have material and we have material instance. In our case, we want instance because materials are basically the default overarching object that we don't need to make, thankfully. So we're going to do material instance. Make a new one, and I'm going to call this let's build MIC. And I'm going to open that. And you'll see immediately we have a little sphere, and the sphere is actually loading this material that we just created. We have parent, physical material, so on. There's not very much settings here, and that's because we want to actually load it into the parent. So before I do that, though, I'm going to actually grab my skeletal mesh. I'm going to highlight it here, and with it highlighted in the browser, in the very bottom of the viewport, you'll see there's a little like cinder block icon. And what that does is that actually selects the mesh that I have selected in the browser as the preview mesh. So if I click that, you'll see now we have our acro model. And any changes we do to the actual material, we can see on the acro here. So, okay, I feel like I should talk about this a little bit. So right here we have a thing that just says parent. So a lot of what these sessions are going to cover is parent and child classes. Now, how this works is, as I said earlier, like we have the big materials that are kind of already set up for us. So what a parent is it actually, we select a blueprint and it basically loads all of those settings for us into our own custom blueprint. So in this case, we have our own custom material instance. But what we're going to do is we're going to grab, I believe it's Dino ASA? Is what it's, or is it ASA Dino? I think I have it backwards. There we go. So we have material instance ASA Dino, and I'm going to load that as a parent. And you'll see what that did. That loaded a whole bunch of different settings. And because what it's doing is this is kind of just the default material that every creature in ARK uses, right? So we can kind of just load that into our custom one and then have all these settings here to change or don't change if we don't want to. So like, let's say we have fur and feathers. Acro doesn't have fur and feathers, so we don't need to worry about that. But we have that here, which is cool. Let's see. Could you show how to make glowing eyes like in Primal Fear? Also, are we able to go back and watch the stream after it ends? Yes, the stream will be posted on Overwolf's YouTube later. Could I show how to make glowing eyes? If I have time closer when the stream ends, I can kind of touch on that. That will probably involve some custom texture stuff, but I can show that. So what I'll try to do is the last like half hour, 20 minutes of the stream, I'll focus specifically on questions. So if anyone has any specific questions in regards to a certain thing, I can do that for the last bit of the stream. Let's see. Okay. So we have all these settings here, and the very top we have model data, and we have slots for those four textures that I mentioned earlier. So we have albedo map, which in this case is going to be our diffuse. We have colorization. We have our material map, which is actually our layered. It's the one that light reacts to. And we have our normal map. So what I'm actually going to do, just so I can demonstrate to you all how these textures change things, is I'm going to just load default gray on this whole model. So this model has no proper textures right now. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's go to our folder. I'm going to grab the diffuse. And if I plug that in, you'll see it's kind of hard to see because the other maps are overriding it, but you can kind of see where his scales are lighting up, those lighter areas. We can see details on some areas, which it's actually not. Ooh. I may have imported the wrong acro model. I may have to actually import a different one. We'll see. Let's see if I load this here. Yeah, it looks like I imported the wrong acro actually. My bad, guys. Give me one moment just to make sure I'm actually importing the wrong one. Acro mesh. Is it this one? Can I see the dates? Let's see. So we have 12. That is the newer one. I wonder why that's not working. Let's see. So if I import this. I think I was probably just kind of figuring out some UV issues. Okay, so we got the new one set up. So let's see, is this the correct one? It looks like it. Almost. His back isn't right. So close. Weird. I wonder why it's not working. Sorry guys for the holdup. I'm just kind of a little confused on why this model isn't working. Let me double check my actual acro folder. Okay, so it is acro new. So that should be the correct one. So those textures are loading fine. Maybe there's a setting I'm forgetting somewhere. No, it's not the dev kit. I think it's just something I did. I may just not be up to date on the files that I'm using. For all intents and purposes, though, it should be working. Okay, well, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna just use the actual acro that's working, and I'm gonna just copy that. So let's see. So we have acro new here, and then if I load this, okay, that one's working. So it's something with the material I'm not doing right. Which, let's see if I can figure out what that is. Also, if somebody knows what I'm doing wrong here, please feel free to just be like, oh, you got to just check this box, because it's probably something as simple as that I'm forgetting. But until then, I'm going to just kind of go through this normally. So let me actually open this one. And I'm just going to set all these settings to default. Just let me actually see. It might actually just be the texture. Let's see if I do acro new. And then I load you here. Yeah, weird. Okay. Well, that's fine. So let me just reset all these quick. Ooh, I'm gonna have to start hustling if I want to get to animation. So, okay. Getting off of that. So let's grab this. So, with the UVs not being weird, you'll see we have all the scales and stuff here. We have all that being loaded. You can see like the color in the mouth, all that stuff. So the diffuse is like the base color. So that's the first one we want. Second one we want is the colorize map, which when I plug that one in, let's get rid of this for now. Okay, so colorize. So I'm going to plug that in, and you'll see now he got real funky colors, and that's because none of the actual colorize settings are set up here. So I'm going to just leave those default for now, because I just kind of want to demonstrate what they're actually doing. So as I said before, color region 0 is red here, and you can see over in the settings, that's actually where we control this stuff. So if I wanted the acro to be a specific color, I would move that stuff here. As far as the material is concerned, the color regions are only like a preview display. When you have it set up in the character, they're not going to actually have any of the colors you're setting up here in the material. That's set up in a different blueprint. So we have color region, and then next we have the layered map, which this is the one that controls how light reacts to the creature. In my personal opinion, I find that the layered map is the most important texture. It's the one that makes or breaks whether a creature fits into ARK's world well, or whether it looks really out of place. And you'll notice as soon as I plug it in, the model's just going to look way better because the lighting is actually reacting to it properly. Except for the thigh, apparently. So I guess I'm being proven wrong here. I feel like I'm loading a texture wrong or something. If I do character specular or world specular. Oops. Why is he dark? I don't know. This is weird. But I'll preface with all this by saying you may come into some strange issues when you're doing modding stuff, whether it be a creature or a structure or anything. Things like these are just stuff you have to troubleshoot. It might be, you know, something as simple as a checkbox you forgot to put on, or maybe you just forgot to export the wrong file out of another software, right? So I'm not going to make a big deal out of this stuff, but when you are modding, just be prepared for, you know, weird issues every now and then. But we won't worry too much about it. But ignoring the weird pants, we can see, you know, the lighting around the actual, like, rest of the body is looking much better, you know, especially like when we look in the mouth, we can see the teeth look pretty good, tongue, things like that. And then the very last one that we want is the normal map. So I'm going to click that, content drawer, and I'm going to plug that in. Oh, that fixed the pants. So it was just a normal map issue. And now you'll see details really popped on the acro. So if we actually look here, we can see like the scales actually kind of come off the body and stuff. And part of that is because this is a really high poly model. ASA is able to get away with that, or specifically UE5. But we can start to see a lot more nice detail on it. Like we can see a lot of wrinkles and form on the tongue and stuff, things like that. And you guys probably noticed there's sort of this weird sort of scaly texture here, and we'll get to that. The roughness is being stored in the layered map. So the reason it's called layered is it's actually loading 3 different types of specular light maps. It is loading your metallic map, it is loading your roughness map, and it is loading your ambient occlusion map. And what it's doing is it's layering all of those on top of each other, and it's being loaded at once by the dev kit. Again, I can touch on this in like a substance painter video if people would like that. I think I have a guide for how to set it up as well somewhere actually, so I can plug that somewhere. But now we have our main textures kind of set up here. And from here, we can start kind of going in and messing with a bunch of other material settings. So those little scales you see right here, those are actually detail layers, which is a new setting in ASA. And what this is doing is specific areas on the model, you can actually tile them with very small, different tileable textures. So let's say in this case, Acro has, I believe, is it hide dino small? It's probably that. If I change this, yeah, so we can see this, see it change. So you see when I actually change that value, and we'll look on the back here because it's easiest to see there. So right now I'm at a 4. I can either make it very fine or very large by bringing it down. So that is what that texture is there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set that to 3. And you see we have checkboxes on the left. And if I check those, I can change the default value. Otherwise, what it's doing is it's loading the default from the parent class. So in this case, the default parent is using hide dino small, which I don't really like that. So I'm going to change it to maybe something that's just kind of a base, like leathery. And what I can do is if I click this little browse to icon, I can actually go, excuse me, to the folder where these are all being loaded. And I'm going to go to leather because I think I'd rather have kind of a leather look. And we'll do, let's do leather fine. So first one is the CCOT, which is kind of a layered map for it. And then the second one is the normal map. And I'm going to load both of those. And you'll see that kind of changed. Did I load the right one? Yeah, I did. Okay, so we'll leave that at 3. Second one in this case looks like it's more scales, which if I set that to 0, I believe I can just turn them off completely. So for the case of this, I'm going to just do that. I'm going to just turn all these off because I already showed how one works. Oh, it's messing up the... Is this messing with the layered map? Oh, it is. That's obnoxious. It's weird it makes it so bright. Okay, that should be good. So now I have it off. So detail layers we won't have to worry about right now. Next we have the actual color regions. Again, this is only for preview purposes, but it is a good way to let you kind of figure out how you want certain color regions to be on your character. So in my Acros case, I'll kind of just set him up like he is normally. So he's got kind of a brown. Let's see, so we'll go here and we'll kind of do like a bit of a darker brown there. Green are his little spots, and in game those are a nice blue, not as saturated, and we'll bring that down to about there. Our blue, we are not using the blue color region. Cyan, we are not using the cyan color region. And magenta is a little highlight on them, so that's kind of a dull yellow. So we'll do like that. And then the yellow region is his tummy. So we'll change that to a very light sort of brown. There we go. So now we have not crazy rainbow. It's kind of more, you know, looks more like acro. There we go. And you'll notice he doesn't have an eye texture right now. That's because ASA dinos actually load a separate eye material. It's a special one that has a refraction effect. And I'll get into that after this. So we have the color region set up. We have a few new ones. We have regionless color region, which in this case, what regionless means is it's areas that aren't going to be affected by color regions. So that would typically be like the teeth, the tongue, things like that. We can just leave that at default. And then we have cavity, and cavity is based on your layered map. So in this case, my cavities are going to be like these areas in between the creases of the scales, right? So if I wanted those to be like a specific color region or something, that's what I would affect. Next, we have damage. So what this affects is when a creature loses health, it shows the actual damage overlay. So you'll see here under damage amount, if I change this, you see it actually gets bloody. And it's a pretty cool effect. Definitely looks really nice compared to the ASE ones. And we can tweak a bunch of these settings here. So for me, let's say I feel like these splotches are maybe a little too intense, and I actually prefer those scratches, right? So what I can do is, let's see, some of these different settings. base tiling. That would be the actual tiling for that effect, which I'm going to make that larger so it doesn't repeat so obviously. Noise power is how much I want of that effect. So I could cover him completely and he's just a bloody mess, but I'll just leave that default. And I can also just turn off that checkbox. Damage noise tiling. So that controls the actual size of those splotches. So I can actually make, let's make those splotches maybe like that. I think that's pretty good. And I'll actually decrease the noise on them just a little bit. So maybe 1.5. There you go. A lot of these settings are things that kind of take some experimentation and playing with. I can't really walk through every setting, unfortunately. I can only kind of just show you bare bones and recommend that you experiment yourself. So we have, per instance, roughness add, and then we have scratches power. So scratches are those actual tears that I want. So I definitely want more of those. So I'm going to actually decrease their power. So I'm going to put them at 1. And that makes him a lot more scarred up. As you can see, it might actually be a little too much. So maybe we'll do 1.5. And then scratches tiling, that is the size of the scratches. So I could either have them be huge gashes on him, which I think I will leave it like that. Cool. And keep in mind, this is setting up the damage, right? This is what it'll look like when it's dead, like when it has 0 health. So we can mess with that damage amount to actually see how this looks over time. So at 0, this is no damage. And then as I go through it, this is kind of how damaged it would become. So that's at max. So maybe this is actually too low. So we'll boost that up a bit. And then we can set that back to 0. It's important to set damage amount back to 0 when you're done with it, because otherwise your creature's going to look bloody even when they're not hurt. Excuse me. Next we have Canopy. I have no idea what that does. I'm going to be completely honest. I haven't messed with it. Let's mess with it now, I guess, and see what happens. I don't really see anything happening. Yeah, no idea what that does. So I'm just going to ignore that. Base color does a few very minor things to a creature. Generally, I'd say 90% of the time, you don't have to mess with this. This is very small things like how the color of the shading on a creature, like the shadow here, like what color the shadow will be, things like that. I wouldn't worry about it. Color correct. Haven't messed with it. I'm going to ignore it. Curvature, that affects part of the layered map. Not really going to mess with it. Base color we'll ignore. I'm going to just minimize these ones that I'm not messing with. Emissive. So, excuse me. Drying my throat out. The emissive is, somebody asked earlier if I could get eyes to glow. That would kind of be this thing. As well as anyone that's familiar with Acro, when he has his adrenaline glow, that's where this is handled. So I can't really do too much with it right now because I don't have any special texture for this setup. But you'll see if I set emissive intensity up, nothing happens. And it's because the emissive map is just black. It's not actually loading anything. And how an emissive is handled in textures is black in a texture, there is going to be no glow. And white is where the glow is actually going to occur. So if I turn this off, he should just start glowing. I guess not. Well, probably a good thing. But if I did load... Let's just load one of his textures. Just because. I'll load his colorize. So if I load his colorize here, So now you can see he starts glowing the more I make this intensity go up. And you'll see certain areas are glowing more than others. That has to do with a few different factors. It has to do with the diffuse, how bright the diffuse is. So that's why the belly's actually lighting up the fastest, because it's the lightest part on the diffuse, and the back is taking the longest. It factors in colorize a little bit. It factors a lot of things. But emissive is where that's handled. So I'm going to just turn these off and go past that. Scalar parameter values, nothing to really worry about here. Texture parameters, we can ignore. Vector parameters, ignore. Iridescence. So iridescence is, it's iridescence. It's, if you look at like Arthropleura, I think Rhino has a little bit of it. Dung beetle in game, they have that really shiny, pretty sort of rainbow metallic refraction. That's iridescence. You see right here is enabled, is off. If I check it, it will give me a whole slew of new settings here, which I don't need to worry about because Acro's not going to have iridescence. But if that's something you want to do, it works similar to an emissive. You give a mask texture to kind of mask that area out. Metallic we can maybe mess with, but in our case, we're not really going to mess with it. Normal map, we have a few different things here. We have N strength. So that is how powerful the normal map effect is happening. So you'll see as I kind of scroll with that, you see once I bring it to 0, Acro looks very flat, right? Like there's not really a lot of that detail there. And that's because the normal is what's simulating that form. Where if I bring it really high, it doesn't look good. It kind of just looks like weirdly bumpy, right? So the default 1.3 is usually what you'd want to go with. I think for some of my creatures, I maybe have them at like 1.5 just to have it be a little stronger, show a little more detail, but we don't need to worry about it too much. Normal detail strength. So normal detail is the, you remember earlier when I mentioned these detail layers? That's how strong those are. So if you are going to have those little tieable textures, which I'll enable one now so that you can actually see the change. So we have those little scales back. If I come to normal detail and I set that really high, you're going to see those little spots start getting really bumpy. So what I could do is I could actually set that to 0, and that also turns them off. But we do still see kind of the layered texture from them. So I'll just set that back to 0. The eye I'll get to after I cover kind of these basics. No detail on cavity. That's set up at a 0.95. So that means 95% of the cavity effect is not going to really show any detail normal, which is that little tiny effect. So the areas in between the scales, the creases and stuff, won't really have that effect. And that's our normal map. Occlusion, we don't need to worry about. Opacity. Opacity is if you want some transparency in a creature. So let's say jellyfish or rhino's wings, things like that. That's where you would set up that effect. Plates. Plates I haven't messed with. I think this is specifically for stego. If you wanted to do a stego type of setup where a character like command, like in the blueprint, actually changes the visual effect and the texture, I believe that would be this plate setting. Roughness. So roughness is a pretty important one. That kind of factors into the layered texture. So roughness, you see when I mess with this, kind of controls how shiny it is, how much light it's giving off. So at default 0.4, it's pretty good. If you want a creature to appear more sleek or wet, you can drop this. So you see he kind of looks a little more plasticky now. You can see it there on the back. And as I increase it, it kind of diffuses the light, right? It diffuses it a little bit. So for acro, feel like that might be too rough, so maybe I'll do 0.3 just to make him a little, you know, a little shinier, because he's scaled, right? He's going to have some shiny specular scales. And that's just another setting that you play with on your own. Detail, gloss, rough, those settings we're going to ignore. Shadow opacity we're going to ignore. Skin depth we're going to ignore. Specular you don't really need to mess with unless you want to get into like a really specific kind of lighting detail. So like if I wanted acro to be even shinier or reflect more light, I would mess with specular. But I'm not. I'm going to just leave that as is. sRGB hack. These control a few things, like maybe you want to control the overall saturation of the creature. So let's say I want him to not be that saturated, or I want to saturate him in the opposite direction. That would be that setting there. So I'm going to do maybe 0.1, just so he's a little less colorful. And barely notice the change, but it's there. Base color power controls the intensity of those different settings. We'll leave that a default. Subsurface, we don't need to worry about. And that's kind of the material settings. So now with that set up, if I hit save and I go into my test map area, or sorry, if I go to my mesh, what I can do is I can load this material on my guy. And, oh, this is the wrong one, that's why. It's like, why? So let's actually get rid of Acro ASA. We'll get rid of these as well. Oh, and it's not doing the... Okay, we'll get rid of the others. All right. So here, if I put this guy out now. So now we can actually see our texture in the viewport. And I can hit play. Gotta run around him. And it looks pretty good. You know, we got some nice detail there. You can see the scales, the lighting looks good. He's reflecting light well. No area looks specifically too dark. So good start to the materials. So a lot of those settings you don't really need to change the numbers too much. Like by default it runs pretty well, which is nice. So now we have that, and now we want to do the eye. I have a feeling if the other UV sets weren't working, the eye is definitely not going to work. Let me actually see. Here, I'm going to just do what I did before, and I'm going to bring the acro eye over into the new one. There we go. So I'm cheating a little bit, but this is something you can do. If you don't want to worry about making a completely new asset, you can go find an asset for something. Let's say you go to Rex's folder, just drag it to your thing and do copy here. So now I have acro eye refraction here. I'm going to open this, and we're going to see a little ball with what looks like acro's eye and a little effect. Unfortunately, it's really hard to kind of judge this material until you see it in the dev kit. I believe even if I load my mesh on this, it's going to load a little awkwardly. Yeah, like it loads on the body, so there's not really a good way to test it other than to, if you have multiple monitors, you can kind of have this window on one monitor and the other on another. But in this case, it should kind of be set up in the ideal way. So if I grab this, let's see. Yep, it is. So I'll just kind of run through how the eye refraction works. So down at the bottom, we have parent class again. We have Dino Eye Refractive. So that's the one we want for these settings. Global vector parameter, we have a few different things like the sclera color, for the inner eye and the outer, dissolve UV, things like that. Global texture parameter is this is the important part. This is where we want to load the actual creature's diffuse texture. It's going to just load the eye off of that. I will say it took me a while to figure out how eyes work. That's something I can talk about if I do a substance video. It's very picky with UVs. But the main settings we're really worried about is depth scale, which is kind of how intense the refraction effect is. So I think I just had it at 1.1. The UV radius, which is how big the actual texture is going to appear on the eye. And then the offset, which is actually basically UV coordinates for where exactly the eye is on the diffuse. So I have those all set up already because I just grabbed them from my actual acro. And if we come into his mesh here, we can see he's got his eye loaded. He looks terrifying. We can see there is some very loose tracking. It's not actually tracking, it's just a texture effect. But we can see if we look here from the back, we can see the pupil. And if we look over here, we can see the pupil still. So it gives it a nice glass eye effect. And if we come into the dev kit again, we can see he's got his nice, scary, angry eyes. And it looks almost like he's looking down at us, just because of how that eye material works. So now we got our model fully textured. Pretty cool. So with the very bare bones visual setup, now we can start working on the animations. So I really hope the animations are not going to break because the model is being weird. Let's see, where is the root? Oh man, the root is up there too. Okay. The animations might break. Let me... Can I select... If I select this and then I do import... Okay, it doesn't have it loaded. That's unfortunate. So we want acro... So we want which acro? Let's build. That's the one we want. I wonder why it's loading a texture there. Okay, so this is importing an animation. So animation length, blah, blah, blah. We're going to leave all these default. I don't think there's anything we really need to mess with. I'm just doing one right now because I want to make sure the animation isn't breaking. And okay, I guess it's just importing weird. Cool. So with that, I'm going to create another new folder, and I'm gonna, oh wait, I already have my animations folder. Whoops, I'm losing my mind. Whoopsie. So I'm gonna actually move this idle animation into the animations folder. There we go. And now this is where I'm going to start importing all my animations. Obviously for these streams, I'm not gonna show making animations. As you can see, Acro has a lot of animations. Animating takes a while. We have the idle already. I'm gonna just bring in the basic ones because we're actually not gonna make a completely unique blueprint. We're gonna use a parent-child class. So for this case, I'm gonna do bite additive. We want aim. That controls the aim offset where the head looks. I'll do a few bites. I'll just do one. Never mind. I lied. Just to make it easier. We'll do a stomp. or we'll wait on the stomp because I'm not sure I have the right one. Blink, charge left, charge right, idle. No, we have the idle. Move left, move right, roar, swim, and we'll work with those for now. Hit open. Skeleton, we want to load, whoops, our skeleton. I want the correct one, so we're going to do the let's build one. Hit import and sit here for a moment. It's going to import all these animations. Anyone asking questions in regards to when Acro comes out or ARK Edition stuff, I'm not going to answer those questions. I apologize. If you want more info, please join my ARK Edition's Discord. Okay, so now we have a bunch of animations. This isn't even all of them. This is very nitpicky of all the animations. So, if I go to, can I like deselect the root? There we go. So if I go to, let's say that works. So we'll see on the side asset browser, we can see all the animations. So I can click these and it will actually open them in a animation viewer viewport now. So here we have Acro's idle. Got his fun little angry idle. He's got a little throat jiggle, stuff like that. We have move. We have an attack. Blink, which I'll explain how this is working. We have charge, roar, things like that. And from here we can tweak a whole lot of different settings as well. So let's say the idle. I think that's fine. We can change things like speed if we want. So for the move, maybe I think this is a little too slow, so I can do 1.1. There you go. So that feels like a more reasonable speed. FPS, retarget source, things like that. We don't really want to mess with too many of these other settings. The only one that we would usually be wanting to mess with is the scale, or the rate scale, how fast we want the animation to be. Say charge as well. So charge is definitely not fast enough. So we'll do 2 for that. There we go. So that looks more like an actual run. Let's say the bite. So the bite we can do 1.25. Maybe 1.5. And in my case, you know, I have multiple versions of the same one. So like I have an attack bite and attack bite additive here, which I'll explain why I have 2 different ones in the next session. We want to just make sure those are synced as far as their play rate. Same with stuff like the charges and the walk. So move forward is 1.1. So we want to do the same for the turning animations. So we're going to set all of those to 1.1, 1.1. The charge is 2, so we're going to set these to 2 as well. And we are going to do file and save all, just to kind of save all of those settings. Save level. Why is it asking me to save the level? I won't worry about it. Why is his tail so stiff? Huh, did I import the wrong animation? Weird. Anyway, so now we kind of have some animations brought in here, and now we're going to start messing with the animation blueprint, which this is going to control all the general movement for our creature. So basic locomotion, it's going to control the idle, walking, swimming, running, flying, if you have that, turn in place, things like that. So for the case of my acro demonstration here, I'm going to make a child class blueprint, and I'm going to probably just use the Rex. I'm not going to do anything too crazy. So how this would work is we're going to right click, come up to animation here, and we have animation blueprint. I'm going to click that, and you'll see what it's going to do immediately is it's going to show me a list of skeletons, and then we have parent class here. So by default, it's going to not have a parent. It's going to be a completely blank animation blueprint. It's going to have the bare bones for what an animation blueprint would be using. So in our case, this top setting is the skeleton that we want this to be set to. So in our case, we want acro because we want this animation blueprint to be for acro. So we're going to select that. And then I'm going to open parent class because I don't want to make one from scratch. I want to actually use a parent. So I'm going to search for Rex, and we will do Rex anim BP here. I'm going to have that highlighted. You'll see it got rid of acro here. So I'm going to just Can I not select acro with Rex as a parent? Hold on. Oh. Okay. Maybe they changed how that works then. Or I'm just missing something here. So if I select Rex, hold on. Where's Rex? Uh-oh. More weird things that I'm not aware of. Okay, there's Rex. Rex ground form, blah, blah, blah. What is Rex using? Dino blueprint base. Yeah, that's weird. Okay, I wasn't aware of that. So let's see if I can get around that. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to have it with a specific parent. I'm going to do acro new skeleton. And let's build underscore anim BP. Hit the gear icon to the right of the search bar. Oh, thank you, Zen. See, these are things I'm not used to because I normally do just make them from scratch. That's embarrassing. Thank you so much. This little gear? Wait. Okay, so if I hit Rex, so hit the gear icon to the right of the search bar. All developers. I feel like I'm still missing something here. Allow incompatible skeletons. Am I crazy? Here, I think I know the workaround. So I'll just do animation blueprint. I'm gonna do acro. So what I'm gonna do it as if it has no parent class. Let's build anim BP, and I'm gonna open it, and you're gonna be greeted with what is probably a very intense blueprint, or not. That'd be nice if it's not. Actually, in this case, it doesn't have a parent, so it shouldn't be intense at all. Yep, there's nothing. So this is how an animation blueprint looks like by default. So we have output pose under our anim graph, and then we have our event graph. So kind of navigating this generally, On the left side, we have our viewport. This is going to show where any animation changes and testings and things that we're doing will be displayed. We have settings and variables and nodes for our blueprint below that under My Blueprint tab. The middle is the actual graphs. This is where all the business happens, all the nodes, all the plugins, things like that. And then on our right, we have things like details, preview scene settings, asset override editor, which in our case today for this demonstration, asset override editor is what we're going to be working with. So the workaround I was mentioning, right now it doesn't have a proper parent class. If you see in the top right, it says parent class anim instance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File, and right here I see Reparent Blueprint. And I'm going to open that, and then I'm going to look for Rex. So now we should see, if we go to Event Graph, I'm going to actually just delete those, and Anim Graph I'm going to delete. Can I not? Compile. Okay. Well, I'll just close it then. So the reason we reparented is because in our case today, we don't want to have, we don't want to be making a custom animation blueprint. That takes a lot of work. There's a lot of things to worry about. So we're kind of just use a default one that's already set up for us. In this case, the Rex, which, let me see if this is actually working properly. Might not be. No possible overrides found. Either there are no nodes referencing assets in the parent class, or this is not a derived blueprint. Ooh, okay. I actually don't know if I can show this properly today, unfortunately. That might be a problem, Zen, as far as, because I can't actually seem to do the asset override if I go through the reparent method. Let me close this and reopen it and see if that fixes it. Please. Oh, thank goodness. Okay, there we go. Okay, that worked. Okay. So now that we have the Rex as the parent class under my asset override editor, I see a bunch of animations here, right? We have Rex blink, Rex charge forward, charge left, charge right, so on and so forth. And then we have the actual animation asset that's being loaded. So in our case, what we want to do is we literally just want to replace all of these with the corresponding acro animation. So Rex blink, we want acro blink. Rex charge forward, we want acro charge forward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of slowly go through all these. Charge forward, charge left, charge right, falling. I don't think I have an acro falling. I'm going to do swim idle because they kind of almost look the same. Rex idle, I'm going to do acro idle. Rex move forward, I'm going to do acro move forward. So you get the idea. It kind of, you know, takes a moment, but you pretty much just replace all the assets with your own. And if there's certain ones you don't have, like let's say Rex Torpid here, acro doesn't have a Torpid animation, you can just ignore it. You can just leave that and it just won't load it. Swim forward, we have swim, swim idle, we have swim idle. And I can't scroll in this window for some reason. There we go. And aim offset. So, okay, that's another thing I have to set up actually. Can animations already in ARK be edited? Yes and no. You don't have the complete freedom of like, you know, having animation controls and stuff in like Maya and things, but you can control different things like speed. You can kind of hodgepodge animations together with montages. As Aglaman said, a glad man. I mashed that up weird. You can share animations between dinos. You can retarget, so on and so forth. Before I get into the aim offset, I'm going to actually use the bathroom really quick because I need to go. So I will be right back. You can look at my dog that's sleeping behind me while I do that. Okay. Got myself some donuts. Okay. Aim offset. So, aim offset is very important. You can get away without it. So, what aim offset does is it controls the dinosaur being able to like look in specific directions. So, like, if you're riding a dino and you look left, it actually makes the head look left. So you'll see here I have a bunch of different animations. I have aim center, aim down left, so on and so forth. How you set those up actually is you have a single frame animation that is that pose. And you basically want it for all the extremes of those angles. So if you want the most left, you have a pose that's the most left. So in this case, if I open this, you see it's just a single frame animation of Acro looking left. Aim right is just the mirrored that. We have down left, which is a combination of those, and then we have center. And the aim offset blend space is just the combination of all of those. So if I right click here in my animations folder, I'm going to go to animation, and we should see at the very top aim offset. And it's going to ask me the skeleton I want to use. So I'm going to do the let's build acro. And it just made my thing there. So let's build aim offset. So I'm going to open that. And you'll see now we're going to have basically the same animation preview, except now we have kind of this big graph down here on the bottom. And this is actually where we put all of those different animations. So what I'm going to do is, why is it showing like every asset? Oh, is that because of this? There we go. Ooh, that would have been a bad thing to leave on. Okay, so aim center. I can just drag that out here. And I'm going to hold shift when I do this. And what that does is that's snapping it to these points. Which, why is it not? Oh man. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm glazing over all these little things. So the reason that wasn't working just now is I actually have to change a setting in these aim animations. So if I come to additive settings here under the aim center, I want to change this to mesh space. And then we have skeletal reference pose, but we're going to do selected animation frame. And in this case, we want our idle because that is the animation that this pose is based off of, right? This aim pose is the first frame of the idle. So to avoid weird stretching, or if you ever notice creatures that have feet sliding and stuff, it's because if it's slightly off the idle pose, it's going to mess that kind of stuff out. Just pointing out that he does. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to come back to one of these questions. So does that mean one can create their own texture in another platform and bring it over to the dev kit? Yeah, absolutely. You can also export textures from the dev kit, edit them in like Photoshop or Substance Painter, and re-import them back into the dev kit. As I was mentioning, we want it to be the same pose. So we're gonna grab our acro idle. We have it selected in the content browser, and we want to just click that arrow and plug it in. And we want to do that for every single aim offset or aim animation. So aim down, we want to change the additive to mesh space. We want to change this to selected animation frame, and then idle. And we got to just do that for all 6 of these. So it's 6 or 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's 9. Mesh space. And this is something you don't necessarily have to do for a creature. Like, you know, they can just kind of look forward permanently, but it adds character. It's something I would recommend. And honestly, it's not really that hard. It's not hard at all. It's just more time consuming than anything, getting all the poses set up. Oops. Okay, so now with all of those like that, so save as. Why does it keep asking me to save a level? I'm just gonna do let's build. I just want to save everything. Eat my donut. How can you get 2 animations to combine? So running and biting, that would be additive animations. That's something I'll cover more when I get to the character blueprint. As I mentioned earlier, the animation blueprint is specifically for locomotion. There's no like attack stuff being handled in that. That's what the character does. But if you're here for the next stream session, that is where I will talk about additive animations and things like that. So we have the aim offsets, and so now if I go to the aim offset and I try to drag these animations in here, it should work. There we go. And that's because it needed to have that mesh space additive setting. So now we have the center animation, and it's being loaded on top of the idle, which is awesome. And then I can just start bringing all these in. So acro down. Let's do acro up. And the way you want to read this graph is treat it as if you're actually writing it. So this side is left for the creature. It's not like when you're looking at it this way. It's not his right. It's your right. So left is going to be here. Right is going to be here. Aim up left. Aim up right. Aim down left. Aim down right. So now if I hold control, I can actually see the preview of this. I can kind of move my mouse around the graph and I can see how the aim offset's working. So this is an aim offset setup. So we have him looking up, looking down, and we can kind of see how it blends with the idle. So we can have him headbang, we can have him say no. There's a few different settings we can tweak here if we wanted to. We can have a smoothing time. I believe that's the interpolation, essentially. Sample smoothing. I don't know if that affects it. Is that just a global version of it? If I set this to 5, what happens? It looks like it did do a bit of smoothing. Maybe not. I can't tell. I believe that is what this would be. Yeah, that's what that is. So if you want like a smoother kind of movement between the actual aiming, so I'll set that to 1. So now you'll see when I go here on the aim, you see kind of like, he doesn't just pop his head there. It's actually kind of a nice like weight to it. And I can set that a little lower if I want, just, you know, for the sake of gameplay, so it doesn't feel so heavy and weird. There we go. So now we have the aim offset set up, and now we can actually set that back up into the animation blueprint. So click that and bam. And so now we got all of our animations plugged in, and I'm going to hit compile. And you'll see now we have our acro, and he's loading his idle. And below the asset override here, we have a bunch of different settings, which I actually don't know why it's showing the settings twice. And we have edit preview and edit defaults. So what we can do here is I'm going to check edit defaults, and this is where I can tweak any specific settings if maybe I don't want them to be exactly the same as Rex. So let's say is moving, so I can check that. And we see in the preview, he starts walking. Turn it off. And so in my case, maybe I think he's stopping too fast. So what I can do is I can go to moving blend in time and blend out time. So I think the 0.5 can maybe be 0.6. And let's make the 0.4 0.5. Really subtle changes. But so now if I do that, so now it just adds like a tenth of a second to the timer. So you just delay it. Aim settings here, use aim offset. We want checked, movement animation rate, use falling, yada yada. Most of these settings we can probably leave at default just for now. Rex ground conform. Ground conform, I won't be able to get into today. I don't have enough time, but that is essentially how the body reacts to terrain when it goes into its ragdoll state. It's set up differently from how it is in ASE. So I'm going to just uncheck that for now, just to make sure it avoids any sort of weird issues. And I'm going to compile and save. And now, yeah, we'll probably have to get into physics on the next session. So now what I'll do is I'll actually make a basic character blueprint, and I'm going to plug in this animation blueprint so we can actually see if it's kind of working. So I'm going to do blueprint class, And I'm gonna just look for Rex, because I want it to just be a child of Rex. So we want Rex. Let's do Rex underscore character BP. That's what we want. There we go. So I'm gonna select. So what I just opened is basically the Rex blueprint. This is like the actual Rex NPC, or a duplicate of it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually swap out some of these with acro. So skeletal mesh, I'm going to change to acro. So we have our little goober there, and he's definitely really tiny, so I think I will actually scale him up. And under anim class, I'm going to change it to the animation blueprint that we just made. There we go. So now we'll see his animation start loading. And I'm going to make the mesh a little bigger. So let's do... How big is times 2? Is that too big? That's a little big. Yeah, let's do like 1.5. Save. Why does it keep asking me to do this? I've never seen it ask me to do this level save thing. Okay, and we're gonna hit compile. There's probably gonna be a lot of issues, but if we see animations actually happening, then we did it right. So I'm gonna hit play. And I'm going to hit the tilde key so that I can get to my content browser. I'm going to do let's build character. I'm going to right click. I'm going to do spawn dino in-game tamed. And it crashed the kit. So there was something that was not set up right, which is my bad. I probably didn't look into it thoroughly enough. So let's relaunch the dev kit. Not a big deal. These things happen. Well, we only have about 10 minutes of the stream left anyway, so that's fine. We'll get the character stuff set up in the next stream. Yeah, we'll leave it that way. That's better, probably. So, here, just, you know, it's obviously a very different asset, but I'll show my acro just so you can kind of get an idea of like what we would have set up. I guess since we only have about 10 minutes of this stream left, at least that was the plan, was for it to be about a 2-hour stream. I'm gonna just leave this last 10 minutes to any specific questions, or if there's any specific thing in regards to maybe the mesh or animations that you'd like me to talk about. Can you simulate the mass of the creature when starting and stopping movement? That's kind of more handled in the character blueprint, but you can. You can edit its acceleration, and they do have a mass value, which kind of comes into play with movement and mass and things. So let me actually show my acro. So hopefully he doesn't crash the kit. There we go. So if things were working as intended, so we would have a character here. You see his aim offset's actually going to make him look at me when I come in front of him. You're probably hearing sounds. I didn't get to sounds today. That's something else I can do in the next stream. We should, if there's CurseForge Overwolf people here, we should maybe have the next 2 streams be like 3 hours, honestly. It might be a good idea just because there's so much content to cover. And so if I rode him, so we have the idle, I can look around. You see he has a turn in place, so he's starting to turn. but if I were to start walking, it would start playing the walking animation. If I wanted to start running, it would start playing the running animation. That's the whole deal with the animation blueprint. No hard condition to stop this one after 2 hours. Okay. I will have to stop, unfortunately, because I did make plans after this. But I will make sure to have the next few streams be longer, just so I can cover content that I miss. Will this be able to watch after the end? Yeah. This whole stream is being recorded right now, and then I will give this to the CurseForge folks to put on their channel, I believe. But so, you know, I have attacks and stuff, but we don't have that set up. So with what we did today, this is essentially how we would have it. We would have a creature that's able to move around, walk. We can see it actually navigate around terrain. If I told it to go someplace, it would be able to go that place. That's essentially what we set up today. So, with that, I guess after stream at some point I'll figure out why that was crashing. But, so today was like kind of the big visual elements of the acro. So, for the last few minutes until, for about the next 10 minutes, I'll answer any questions or show any specific detail if anyone wants. Our attack's going to be tied to animations. So attacks are tied to the character blueprint very specifically. There's probably some weird ways you can set up specific attack related things in the animation blueprint. But generally you do that in the character blueprint. Thank you for showing all this, learning a lot. There's a lot to the dev kit, so it's overwhelming. Yeah, it's, you know, that's why, like, I'll make the next streams longer, but there's a lot to do. But you know, it's fun, and a lot of it just really honestly comes down to you experimenting yourself and kind of figuring out what's what and like how things work. Once you kind of dabble in it a little bit, it can kind of become second nature. Thank you for doing this. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you to, it was actually Overwolf and Wildcard that kind of got this set up. So, thanks to them for kind of organizing all this. How do you change the size of a creature if it's too small or big? What I typically do is, in my mod folder, if I go to my characters skeletal mesh, and we scroll down to mesh settings here, we have scale multiplier, and right now I have it set to 1.5. This is how I typically do it. I have seen some ARK characters have it actually scaled up in the character blueprint themselves, but the times I've messed with that, it's gotten really messy. For me personally, this is the cleanest way I've seen it done, is by just adjusting it here in the actual mesh. Good idea to say a few words about what session 2 and session 3. Yeah, so session 2, session 1 today covered, you know, kind of getting the mods started, getting our plugin folders ready, importing a character mesh, importing its animations, and importing its textures. The next session is going to focus on the actual blueprinting. So that's kind of where it becomes a little codey. But don't let that intimidate you. It's actually, it's all what's known as visual node based coding. I can show a brief example of it here with my proper acro. But you're not like typing anything. You're not saying like, you're not typing code. It's actually a lot of functions like this. So this is actually a perfect example to kind of show how easy this stuff can be once you figure it out. So we have BP fed waking tame event. So when you feed acro, the first thing it does is it's going to cancel the current attack that's playing. if it's not sleeping, which is what this is, it's checking if it's sleeping. If it's false, it's going to play a specific animation here. It's going to prevent waking time feeding. It's going to disable its roaring action. The sound is going to stop. That's pretty much how graphing is. It's kind of just a lot of, if this happens, then this happens. It's honestly, the biggest problem with graphing is server-side replication issues, which I don't know if you're still here, Zen, but that would actually be awesome if you could maybe kind of just babysit the next session and kind of help me point out any issues with things like that. I think that would help a lot of folks here as well. But that'll be session 2, is covering this blueprinting stuff, as well as character class settings here, which you see when I scroll. There's a lot of stuff here. Don't let it intimidate you. A lot of this stuff you don't necessarily need to mess with. If you see on the right side here, I have these little checkboxes. Those are pretty much the things that I've edited myself. So all these other things that don't have those little checkboxes, I haven't messed with. So you don't have to mess with too much. But this, things like buffs, dyno settings, dyno AI, that will be session 2. Session 3 will be getting ready to cook the mod. So we have the character done, animations are done. We've squashed most compiling issues we may have. That will be the 3rd and final session, and then getting ready to cook it and get it on the CurseForge platform. Let's see. How would you fix the hitbox of the Sarko? Wildcard still hasn't fixed it. It's so broken and misses 9% of the time. I mean, in regards to what attack, like, I guess that depends on a lot of things too, right? Like the default attack, I imagine it's not broken. I'm going to guess what you're talking about is maybe something like the death roll bite or the lunge bite. That might just be, you know, a blueprint thing that is maybe just not replicating somewhere, which is something I'll talk about in the next session. But I can't speak for wildcard as far as wildcard things. Truth be told, I barely play ARK. Like I think I have 10 times the hours in the actual dev kit than I do in the game. So if there is things broken in the game, I don't know. I can't help, unfortunately. Let's see. Are there any other questions in regards to things covered today? Maybe there's a question I missed. Will I do anything with sound? Yeah, I was hoping I'd actually get to sound today, but we're running short on time. We're about to kind of wrap up the stream, so I'll cover sound in the next stream. I'll make the stream, the next one, a lot longer. I'll kind of just go. I haven't been here for the full stream. What's an estimate for how long it takes to make a creature, assuming there are no distractions? If you are making the model, the textures, the sounds, the animations, and the character blueprint, as well as any accompanying blueprints, all from scratch, if you are by yourself, it will take you several months. It takes me, I don't know. Sometimes I've gotten a creature out in 3 months. Other times it takes 7-8 months. It depends on how complicated the creature is. It depends on how much of the assets you're creating. It takes a while, honestly. Yeah, a lot of stuff goes into asset creation, but let's say, you know, maybe I wanted to make a Stegosaurus in ARK that shot lasers when it swung its tail. That, you know, if you don't know what you're doing and you're completely new to the dev kit, you could probably make that in 2 weeks, maybe a week even. It really depends. Let's see. Are there any YouTube videos out there to look at to help with modding as well? I'm sure there is. I don't know if there's really any as far as UE5 specifically. Yeah, I think Zen does have some on the official wildcard channel, if not like another channel somewhere, that kind of talk about like navigating the dev kit and things of that nature. Is sea creature modding very different? No. The only difference as far as what we did today was you would have a lot of swimming animations in place of the movement animations, but no, you're still making a character blueprint. You're still making things like the aim offset, things like that. What I covered today kind of just generally covers bare bones creature creation. So how do you solve weird color blending between color regions? So that is also a very irritating issue that I've come across as well. So unfortunately, the only way to solve it is specifically to design your color regions in a specific way, which I believe, let me, ARK color region dev kit. I think if I Google that, it pops up. Let's see. Yeah, it did. So granted, this is the wiki for ASE, but this is the important image that we want from this. So these colors can touch. Magenta can touch red, it can touch blue. If red touches blue, that's where you get the weird color blending that you're talking about, where it makes like the white stripes and things. Certain colors cannot touch other ones. For some reason, it just has a weird issue with that sort of masking. So the way you have to design colors is to make sure that they're just not touching colors they can't. So in the case of Acro, if I go to his, his textures here, so we see magenta is touching red. Red is touching yellow because it can. Green cannot touch red, but it's being separated by this yellow, right? Now magenta can't touch green, but that's why I have the green here being very sharp. Unfortunately, if you look at Acro very close, you can still see those little white stripes. So sometimes you can't always work around it, unfortunately, but that's just how it is. Will you dabble into stat changes in session 2? Yes. Yeah, that'll be all the blueprinting things. Let's see. Thanks a ton for the stream. Yeah, absolutely. This was fun. Curious about Amanda Bice Games questions as well. Do you usually hand create all of your models, textures, etc., or do you outsource some of those and just focus on certain parts of the mod creation process? I normally make everything. The only thing that I don't do is sounds. I buy sound packs, and there is a person in my Discord that is very talented at sound mixing, and I give him those sound packs to make sounds for me. So things like Serato, Dinokairos, Dinotherium, those are all very wonderful custom sounds that this person made. But I'd say that is the only thing I don't do. Otherwise, I do the models myself. I model them in ZBrush. I do the rigging and the animation, which is done in Autodesk Maya. I do the texturing, which I do in Substance Painter. And everything else is in Unreal. The only time I have really outsourced is actually right now. I have a very talented person modeling the Edmontonia model. They are getting to the detailing right now. They are very talented. It looks great, and I hope you all will look forward to that. But other than that, I am usually doing everything on my own. Where do you buy your sound packs? I don't remember what the sites are called, unfortunately. I'll figure that out on the next stream. What is the website that you just showed with the color maps? It is just the ARK modding wiki. This is for ASE, granted, but all I did was Google ARK colorization dev kit, and it was one of the first links. I believe maybe Zen can link it. I think there is a ASA modding wiki or something available as well. Let's see. Let's see. Trying to catch up with all these chat messages. There's so many. Why can't I scroll? Okay, Twitch isn't letting me scroll anymore. Whoops. There we go. This room will be available later to review. Do I have any tutorials for 3D modeling and texturing? I believe I have a video tutorial for Substance Painter. That's on my it's on my YouTube actually. I'm pretty sure. Let me double check. It might be a little out of date. I could probably actually get a more up to date version. How do I get to my channel? There we go. I do not have these. No, I know I do. Maybe I have it unlisted. I'll figure it out. But all right, I'm gonna answer one more question, and then I'm gonna head out for the day, everyone. Do you have another job? So outside of this, I am a professor at a state college. I teach this stuff. I teach 3D modeling. I teach animation. Predominantly, I teach things like Photoshop. I teach the Adobe Suite, Illustrator, Premiere sometimes. But the past year, I've actually taken off of teaching to focus on modding. So right now my job is pretty much to mod, essentially. Yeah, I'm going to keep using Acro for these sessions. But yeah, everyone, yeah, the stream will be available later. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope this was helpful or insightful. Again, this is being recorded, so I will send this over to Overwolf. And yeah, and the next session is February 17th, I believe it was. And we're going to do the blueprinting and everything. So take care, everyone. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend and next few weeks. And I will see you all in the next session. So take care. Bye.